Here, where do we go now that we're 70? What do we change? Well, let's take that first one. Why do we insist, why do people insist, why do these old fuddy-duddies insist that you must be an alcoholic to be an AA? As I said, it's one big disease. Alcohol, drugs, food, gambling. Do you know where that phrase came from? It's all one disease. That came from a treatment center that only had one van. It may be in some forms of its recovery one big disease, but it certainly isn't where it counts. And to understand that, you have to get back to the nature of alcoholism, this thing that has been recorded for over 5,000 years. And there seem to be types of alcoholics. Nobody talks about it much, but there seem to be, for example, there are some people who apparently are alcoholic by any way you measure them, and something drastic happens that threatens their security, or death, or or they lose the family, or they lose a job, and they quit. And they never drink again. And we all know people like that. Most of us know people like that who've done that. There's also the same type when they become physically addicted, require medical help to withdraw. And there's a very famous hospital in this very area called Sheikh Shadel that has talked about withdrawing people from alcohol. Alcoholism can be cured in 30 days. And they have a list of people for whom it has worked. Because these are alcoholics, but are medically withdrawn. Incidentally, the start of treatment centers was for people who have become physically addicted to alcohol. You think, what's the big deal about being physically addicted to alcohol? It's a much worse addiction in recovery than drugs. Many more people die in withdrawal from alcohol addiction than from drug addiction. But each step of the way, they show them what the nature of their problem, what's happened, and quit. And they never drink again. If they go through Sheikh Shadel, their name's on the wall. That's true. And they do exactly what they say. But then there's another type of alcoholic, which seems to be an alcoholic by any way you measure him. And something happens to really drastically threaten his or her security, lose a job, lose a family, have a problem, have a death somewhere, and they quit. But they always eventually drink again. And this same type of alcoholic comes out of treatment centers sometimes with tears of sincerity literally rolling down their cheeks, and they mean it. And they say, I quit. But they always drink again. And these are the type of drinkers that have baffled people for 5,000 years. Baffled people who tried to help them, about the medical profession, the psychiatric profession, the social security or social services section. Yeah. If anybody here, of the alcoholics here, I should say, probably your connection with that would be the same as mine, of watching a loved one's face with that terrible look of saying, oh, how could you? You were doing so well, and you promised, and the children were doing better, and you're going to get your job back, and now look at you. You're drunk again. How could you? And I have no explanation for it either, so all I can say is shut up and leave me alone. Which sounds funny here, but it isn't very funny when you're saying it, I'll tell you. And these are the type of people who have been such a problem, and no one's ever had an answer for them. There's one time in the mid-1840s, the early 1840s, some old drunks got together in Baltimore. They took a vow to help each other stay sober, and they did. And they called themselves the Washingtonians, and they grew people, because there was no help for people, and they grew. At the end of 5 years, they had what was estimated to be 100,000 sober drunkards in America. I bet very few people here, except in the book, ever heard of them. And in 1845, what they did, they decided, we're doing such a wonderful job, we're helping so many people, we really should not just be wasting our time with drinkers. We should help people with narcotics problems who are not drinkers. We should help people who have emotional problems. Perhaps we should work on stamping out the sale of alcohol, working for prohibition. And they have this enormous organization, all put their will to work to help all kinds of people. And in 3 years, 1848, they were extinct and they all died drunk, except very few exceptions.